Quarter of a century. Whoa. Unbelievable. So it is an honor to be part of the network's 25-year celebration. Growing from grassroots to national innovation, from pioneering certified peer specialists to operating more peer wellness centers than any other state, significantly cutting hospital admissions and crisis costs. Sherry asked me to share some history of the network. Wow, wasn't that film unbelievable? Oh my gosh. But like any history, it's through the eyes of the storyteller. So forgive me for any history individuals I failed to include. There's so much to cover over a quarter of a century. But in an attempt to minimize my biased perspective, I dug through original documents starting with 1990, and in reviewing those records, letters, and articles, what emerged were two major pillars of our success: hope and leadership. Hope and leadership. So let's begin with the power of hope. And I'm quoting from the first Pipeline newsletter. It was published in winter of 1991. And the quote from the lead story on the front page: one after another, an individual stood, walked to the center of the room, and placed $1 in the room, on the floor. Though it was a small amount each gave, the combined effort made a monumental statement for the group of 30 Georgians who gathered in Atlanta the last weekend in October. That statement was the preamble of what the group members envisioned: a statewide independent voice for consumers of Georgia's mental health system. And then we moved to a quote in the story from Larry Walker. Quote, some doubted you had the ability to travel to Atlanta and attend the meeting without assistance, said Larry Walker, Georgia's adult mental health director. Hopefully what you accomplish here will help dissolve the myth and stigma of mental illness. Walker credited funding for the 1990 meeting at the Vantage Hotel in Tucker to Peter Sparrow, who chaired the Consumer Committee of the Mental Health Planning Council for a federal block grant. Peter found a clause that grant dollars could be used for supporting statewide consumer trainings and gained approval to conduct a workshop on starting self-help groups. Walker requested from community program managers that they recommend consumer leaders to attend the workshop with all the expenses paid and stay over for a meeting that followed it. For federal dollars, you had to have a training workshop. And what we snuck in was a meeting after the training, and that's when the good stuff happened. You gotta follow the federal guidelines, you know what I'm saying? So, in the meeting that followed is when the donations came, they totaled $30. And we decided to start a newsletter still called The Pipeline. The Pipeline published the voice of consumers that evolved into the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. Former network president Willie Woods. Willie, where are you, buddy? Still serving on the board and present today, and myself were among the original 30 founders who met in 1990. Not only has Willie been an outstanding leader who has attended all 25 conferences, he's also a great resource for history. Thank you, Willie, for all you've done to help build this organization and promote recovery. We'd also like to acknowledge longtime network supporter Robert Lowry, Goldie Marks, and the late Glenda Brown. With all board members, past and present, please stand for recognition of your dedicated service. All board members, past and present. In May of 1991, a second meeting was organized and attended by 60 consumer leaders from across Georgia. The feature presenter was Joel Slack. Whoa. We know Joel as the founder and director of the Respect Institute, but what you may not know is Joel was Alabama's original director of the Office of Consumer Relations and pioneered creating similar positions in states nationwide. The positions both Mark Baker and I held, representing people with lived recovery experience at the state office, are largely a result of Joel's trailblazing. Thank you, Joel. An outcome of the second meeting held in 1991 was organizing a steering committee made up of representatives from 8 Georgia regions, holding local rallies for input on shaping the mission, the priorities, and the structure of the network. One of the attendees of the second meeting was Ken Whidden, who became the network's first president and brought instant credibility to our movement. After 10 years, in and out of state hospitals, living on disability, Ken became employed and mailed back his last check with a note he would no longer need Social Security payments because he had a good job. Ken was open about the importance of medications, but he said pills were not enough. For recovery, he needed the hope he found in meaningful and purpose from work. He rose up the ranks to manage a day treatment program in Macon, where he succeeded putting consumers to work when other programs could not. He was a rock star among Georgia providers. Ordained a Baptist minister, he had an incredible gift for public speaking, which he used to convince state legislators to support our cause. Like many miracles that emerged from our mission of hope, he was the right person at the right time and went on to found America Work, his legacy that won national awards. Ken passed on last year after enhancing many of our lives and helping birth this network. There's the story that Ken told me, he may have told others, that he was a Baptist minister, and when you heard God's voice in the church, they built you a bigger church. But when you heard God's voice in a state hospital, they wouldn't let you out. In 1992, the network steering committee decided to hold the first statewide conference, but we needed a site and support for transportation. David Evans, director of what is now called the Georgia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, backed our request that all day treatment programs use their vans to transport consumers to the conference. And there were a lot of vans. We had 80-something day treatment programs. As network coordinator, the board charged me with finding a conference site. Conference centers refused to contract with us when they learned the attendees were people diagnosed with mental illness. Stigma and prejudice were alive and well, as they still are today. In deep despair, I prayed for help. The response I got is what I call the miracle at Turner's Corner. Waiting for my food to be served at the Turner's Corner Cafe located north of Dahlonega, a stranger sat down and introduced himself as Bobby Dollar. He recognized me from a picture that ran with my column in the local newspaper, along with several stories about mental illness recovery. I shared with him my frustration regarding rejection from conference centers. He inquired whether Mercer University in Macon might work using dormitories vacant for the summer. I responded it would be a great option if the cost was not too high. He wrote down my phone number and said he would check with someone he knew at Mercer. The next day, I answered a call from Mercer's Director of Alumni, inquiring if we would consider the university as our conference site. Would we consider the university as our conference site? She said the only cost would be meals. She shared with me that Bobby Dollar was a Mercer alumni who had raised millions of dollars. A Baptist minister, Dollar had joined Cecil Day in building the Days Inn chain of hotels as the vice president over franchising. It's a miracle I'll never forget. On August 13, 1992, some 650 mental health consumers delivered by day treatment vans unloaded at Mercer University for the first annual network conference. The auditorium was packed with standing room only for state staff who attended. Ken Whidden read the proposed bylaws, and by unanimous vote, the participants approved them. They listened to every single word. You could have heard a pin drop.
We're going to read them again here in a minute, right?
Actually, I have a quote out of it. The bylaws included the following statement. The corporation shall hold an annual statewide consumer convention where the membership will democratically determine the top 5 consumer priorities to be presented to the governor and the General Assembly each year. You got Nathan Deal ready?
Oh, yeah. Waiting for us.
So, the top 5 priorities that emerged were support and opportunity for jobs, number 1. Number 2, hire more consumers in the mental health system. 3, decent affordable housing. 4, more humane treatment and better protection in state hospitals and the legal system. And number 5, upgrade day treatment programs with more meaningful and therapeutic activities. I believe the network keeping as its foundation an annual agenda set out by the top 5 priorities has been a key to its success. And because employment has been voted the number 1 priority nearly every year, it is the main reason in 1999 why Medicaid billable peer support services delivered by a certified peer workforce was pioneered as part of Georgia's state plan. It was you, the members, who led the way for certified peer specialists to become the fastest growing workforce in the national field of behavioral health. The fastest growing. And a shout out to both Wendy Tygreen and Ike Powell for playing key roles in the success of the peer workforce spreading nationwide. Wendy pioneered writing peer support service definitions that Medicaid approved for billing in Georgia, and that has moved on into many other states. She's the foremost national expert on Medicaid billable peer services and the first to have whole health services approved that are delivered by certified whole health coaches. How many of you got in the room? Whole health coaches. That's fantastic. The curriculum Ike Powell wrote for Georgia, certified peer specialist, is being used in nearly half the states and part of Canada. Thank you, Wendy and Ike. Sherry, I got a big box of materials for you. All right, and I'm going to turn those over to the network. So this was the first manual, the first handout at that conference, and it's a binder. And on the front it says the first statewide convention, August 13th, 1992, Mercer University, Macon, Georgia, quote, dedicated to consumer empowerment. Inside was a notepad and a pencil. There were bylaws. These are the bylaws. There was a ballot to choose consumer priorities for the 1990 convention. Ballot, 10 choices, very important that you vote those priorities of this conference. There was a brochure on the Consumer Network that told you some of the history and some of our mission. There was a survey, and the survey said, what do you think? And the questions were about your therapist doctor, your case manager, day treatment staff, residential staff, but there's no peer specialist on here. Boy, has it changed. And then you got a bumper sticker. And the bumper sticker said, first statewide convention, Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network, August 13th, 1992, Mercer University, Macon, Georgia. When we had that conference, I saw state employees that had been working for the system for decades with tears flowing down their face. They knew it would never be the same. And Cliff DeBose, Dr. Cliff DeBose, was basically, over the mental health part of the department. This stayed tacked to the wall behind his desk for all the years that he worked for the state of Georgia. And then there was a budget. Lynn, we had a budget. We had a budget of $35,750. Now that's not just chump change, you know what I'm saying? Now, one of the things in here was an agenda, and there was no cost except for $3 a person. Lynn, I'm trying to figure out what $3 a person would have bought. I mean, it was 25 years ago, maybe Twinkies and a Slim Jim? I don't know. I have no idea. But that's all you had to have was $3. So those are part of our archives. So we reflected on hope, the first pillar of the network. Now let's shift to the second pillar, and that's leadership. We have been blessed with incredible leaders growing the network and staying focused on each year's elected top priorities. At the request of the network board, I was hired in 1993 as Georgia's director of the Office of Consumer Relations and Recovery. That role provided for someone in recovery to serve on the state management team who could promote funding and policy to support the network's top priorities. By the way, Mark Baker, with the confidence the former and current commissioners had in his vision, values, and leadership, helped grow the network budget fivefold and doggedly ensured a strong culture of recovery was infused into the Georgia system of services. Thank you, Mark. The network was ready for a director, and a federal grant funded that position. We held interviews, and Delois Scott emerged as the best candidate, and she accepted the job. At that point, the network was fragile, needing someone who could weather the storms of sparse funding and a weak infrastructure. It required a leader with deep compassion who could win the respect of the membership, the board of directors, and the funders. Someone not overwhelmed by our fragile beginnings. Delois was that person, compassionate, nurturing, and a rock reinforced one day at a time by the AA 12 steps she lived. She had a great sense of humor and gift for telling stories. And boy, did she have stories. Her grandmother, Carrie Cunningham, rode from her home in Fitzgerald to Atlanta on a white horse with a circus. With capital raised from land she inherited, Carrie Cunningham became the first African-American woman business owner in Atlanta, the first in Atlanta, opening the Royal Hotel and Royal Peacock nightclub on Auburn Avenue, where all the great African-American entertainers performed. What sinks many consumer-run organizations is a lack of financial savvy, managing complex state and federal grants and keeping the bookkeeping straight. Delois knew that was not her strength and asked for support. What most don't know is a key to growing from a tiny nonprofit to a multi-million-dollar organization was a highly skilled, behind-the-scenes financial administrator who joined the network in 1997. Her name is Lynn Thoberson. And the network's nationally acclaimed conferences are largely the result of her many gifts and organizational skills. She is so organized, Lynn breaks her work at home into timed 15-minute intervals. I'm convinced that sort of behavior deserves a diagnosis. It has been a great source of ridiculing her over the years. But when I learned that President Carter does the same thing, breaking his work into 15-minute intervals, I stopped making fun of Lynn, since she and President Carter obviously have the same diagnosis. Delois passed in 2009, and we miss her. But the leader who followed is someone I believe to be the best executive director of any consumer-run organization in the country. And I've toured many. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, called SAMHSA, now funds teams from other states to visit the network's extraordinary innovation and program success. With support from a great board and staff, Sherry Jenkins Tucker is overseeing the growth of the network to become one of the largest consumer-operated nonprofits in the country with nearly 100 staff. Living in West Virginia as the director of West Virginia's Office of Consumer Affairs, a committee of us interviewed Sherry by phone for the network's director position. When we ended the call, I was in total awe. Her values, her work experience, her leadership, her skills, her incredible communication gifts were better than anyone I'd ever interviewed. Plus, she is dadgum funny. Her great leadership includes a vision that will keep us ahead of the curve for years to come. Wellness centers and peers trained as whole health coaches, able to bill Medicaid for integrated health services. They're bringing the mind and body together. This is the future. You are the first workforce that is in place and able to bill for integrated services for peer support. So that's the wave coming, and the network is ready to ride into the future. So here's to 25 years of spreading hope and recovery and sharing blessings with thousands of us in Georgia and across the country. Thank you.